Today's lesson is 7.2, Rhombi and kites. Let's go ahead and start with a rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram with four congruent sides. Here are the properties that make a parallelogram a rhombus. The opposite sides are parallel. The opposite sides are congruent. The opposite angles are congruent. The consecutive angles are supplementary. That means that angle D and angle A add up to 180. So do angle A and angle B, and so do angle B and angle C, and the last pair of consecutives would be angle C and angle D. The diagonals bisect each other, which means they cut each other in half. So if you notice, this piece and this piece are the same, and this piece and that piece are the same, but they're not all four equal to each other. All right, those are the five properties that make this rhombus, a parallelogram. The next three make it specifically a rhombus. It has four congruent sides. So notice all four are exactly the same. That's different from the rectangle and the parallelogram. The diagonals are also perpendicular. So in each of these corners, there is a 90-degree angle. And the diagonals bisect the opposite angles. So angle D and angle B are equal, but so are their little parts inside as well. These parts are equal as well. Same thing, A and C are equal, and their little parts inside are equal as well. Let's go ahead and do an example of a rhombus. So rhombus is singular and a rhombi is plural. You can also say rhombuses. I've heard that as well. But rhombi, I like that better because we call it cacti, not cactuses. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our example. So RSTV is a rhombus. And I'm going to ask you to find two things. So if the measure of angle SWT is 2x plus 8 degrees, find x. So the first thing we need to do is we need to find that angle. We need to find this angle. So I'm going to go ahead and use my color to help me out. Remember, I'm going to follow it in order from the letter S to the letter W to the letter T, and that's going to give me my angle. So from S to W to T. This is the angle that they're talking about. Well, if I go back and look at my properties, all these angles right here in the diagonals, they are perpendicular. That means that this angle equals 90 degrees. So to set up my problem, I would say 2x. There we go, you can see that better. 2x plus 8 equals 90 degrees. That's because of the property. All right, let's go ahead and solve this. Let's subtract the 8 from both sides. That would give me 82. And then I'm going to go ahead and divide by 2. X equals 41. All right, let's take a look at our next example. What is the value of y if the measure of WRV is 5y plus 5 and the measure of angle WRS is 7y minus 19? All right, let's use our colors to help us out. Let's use our color to help us out. Oops, sorry, thought I changed the color. There we go. And remember, you're following in order. W to R to V. This is the first angle that they're talking about. So I'm going to go ahead and put the mark there. And this one is, let me put it over here, 5y plus 5. There we go. All right, and my next angle, oh, no, let me bring my pen back. There we go. W to R to S, it's this angle. There we go. And this one is 7y minus 19. All right, so I have to go back to my properties and I have to remember um, the diagonal, which goes from opposite corner to from corner to corner, opposite through the rhombus. Um, it's going to bisect this angle at R into two equal parts. So this piece and this piece, they're equal. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to set these two expressions, 5y plus 5, and I'm going to set it equal to 7y minus 19. I'm going to go ahead and subtract the 5y because all I have left to do is to solve this equation. There we go. 2y minus 19. Now I'm going to add the 19 to the other side. 5 plus 19 gives me 24. Divide by 2. Y equals 12. Now I could go back and plug it in, and they could ask you to do that on your ALEX assignment as well. All right, next we're going to talk about a square. A square is a parallelogram with 4 congruent sides and 4 congruent angles. Let's go ahead and take a look at the properties of my square. Let me go ahead and zoom out so that you can see them all. So the opposite sides are parallel. So the top is parallel to the bottom, the left side to the right side. The opposite sides are also congruent. The opposite angles are congruent. The consecutive angles are supplementary. So remember, angle A plus angle B equals 180. And then you can keep going around. Angle B plus angle C equals 180. Angle C plus angle D equals 180. And angle D plus angle A equals 180. All right. The diagonals, they bisect each other. So this diagonal and that diagonal cut in half. Okay. Okay, that made it a parallelogram. These next 5 make it a square. So here we go. It does have 4 right angles, just like the rectangle. The diagonals are perpendicular, just like in the rhombus. It has 4 congruent sides, just like a rhombus. The diagonals are congruent. So just like in the rectangle, not only do they bisect each other, but they're equal to each other. Not only do they bisect each other, but they're equal to each other. And just like in the rhombus, the diagonals bisect the opposite angles. So this diagonal right here is cutting angle D into 2 equal pieces, and it's cutting angle B into 2 equal pieces. And the same thing goes with AC. These are equal, these are equal. Okay? Now, I keep referencing just like a rectangle, just like a rhombus. That's because a square is a rectangle and a square is also a rhombus. So a square is a special type of rectangle and it is also a special type of rhombus. It's a rhombus that has 4 right angles in the corners. Most rhombuses don't. Other rhombi, the 4 angles could be anything at A, B, C, and D. A square is a special rectangle that has 4 congruent sides because remember a rectangle, the top and the bottom are equal, but the left and the right sides are a different measure. So that makes a square a special rectangle because all 4 of the sides are equal as well. The top and bottom are still equal, the left and right are still equal as well. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at our example and we're done for this lesson. Okay, let's zoom in. ABCD is a square. Use it to find X. All right, so we're going to ask a couple of angle questions here. And remember, we're just going to follow them in order from following the letters. So we've got angle AED. AED. That's this angle right here. If we go back and look at the properties, all these angles at the center at E, they are perpendicular to one another. So once again, equal it to 90. And let's just go ahead and solve. Subtract the 5. That gives me 85. Divide by 5. 17. Could I go back and plug it in? Sure. If I go back and plug it in, 5 times 17 plus 5, it should equal 90. And I know I'm correct. All right, let's go ahead and look at the last one. If the measure of angle ABE is 10x minus 5, find x. Okay, so let's follow them in order. A to B to E, this angle right here. Ooh. Okay, so let's go back and let's think about what we know from the properties. Well, one thing that I know from the properties, and let me grab my red, is that this whole angle here at B is 90 degrees. That's one thing I remember from the properties. Let me think some more. I also remember that the diagonal cuts this angle in half. It bisects it, which means this angle that they want me to find and this angle over here are exactly the same. These two are exactly the same. Well, if they are exactly the same and the whole thing is 90, then I should be able to figure out how much each one of these pieces is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my 90 degrees and I'm going to divide it by 2. Because that's what bisect means. 90 divided by 2 is 45. Each of these angles at B is 45 degrees. So the one that they want, which was this one right here, let me grab my laser. This one right here is the one they want. I can solve that by just saying 10x minus 5 equals 45. I'm going to add the 5, which gives me 50. 10x equals 50. Divide by 10. Let me give myself a little bit more room. X equals 5. Could I go back and plug it in? Yes, I could. It just should give me 45. 10 times 5 minus 5 should give me the 45 degrees.